Welcome to Living Above Self. I am Grace McLean, an experienced and certified financial advisor and retirement specialist who loves to share inspiring stories that impact people's lives. Each week on Living Above Self, you will hear insightful interviews, financial strategies, and the nuggets of wisdom to guide your week. This podcast is about you. It's for you. Welcome to Living Above Self. I am Grace McLean. This week we feature two-time Olympian and bronze medalist Dennis Blake. Welcome, Dennis, to Living Above Self.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So to start off, I want to know, how was your childhood in terms of athletics? Did you start to think about athletics from an early age?
I grew up in a little district called Exton in St. Elizabeth. I don't know if I call it a rough childhood. Looking back now, I probably would say it was a rough childhood because I slept on two chairs. There were not enough beds for me and my siblings to have our own bed. I remember having only one pair of shoes. I would wear the shoes on special occasions. So going to school, I would make sure that I washed my feet clean. And there was no money for us to really go to school, but school was very close. I could really run home for lunch. So that was a plus. Looking back now, I consider myself as a person that was poor but didn't know it.
So you had a happy childhood?
I have a happy childhood, yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And so in terms of you becoming a 400-meter runner, at what point did that happen?
While I was in primary school, I used to run for fun. And back in Jamaica, they have, in the school, you would be divided up into houses. And I was one of the athletes in my house that would run in several events. And I would beat a lot of the athletes that I competed with. And as a result, it strikes something in a couple of the teachers at the school that I really do have talent. And they started to kind of garner that talent. I would say that was when it all started. They took a lot of interest in my abilities and they helped me to continue running track. And I developed a love for the 400. I developed a love. Well, the track wasn't really 400 meters, but we always think it. Once you run one lap, it's considered 400. So whether it was a small track, at primary school, it was considered 400 meters. And that's how it really started.
Right. And you entered boys' champs?
Yes. When I didn't pass my common entrance exam, I had some friends that passed and they went on to high school like Monroe and Stets and all that. But I went on to Junction Secondary School at the time. I think now it's called B.B. Coke High School. I run track there and had very great success while I was there. I was drafted by Stets to compete for Stets after graduation. I graduated, and because of the year that I was born, I was able to compete another 2 years. So I would say I got a scholarship, and I went to Stets for 2 years, and then I competed for Stets at Boys Champs for 2 years, yes.
And so you represented Jamaica. In what year? What year did you represent Jamaica at the Olympics?
A lot of athletes in Jamaica, if you really check back with a lot of those athletes, they would tell you that they have competed when they were in high school at the Carifta Games, at the maybe the CSC Games, the Panama Games and all that. I did not. I left Stets and went to junior college in the United States, in Texas. My first time representing Jamaica was at the 1992 Olympic Games in Barcelona, Spain. So I didn't have the luxury of going to Carifta Games. I didn't have the luxury to go to the CSC Games, the Pan American Games, the Commonwealth Games, the World Championship. I didn't have any of that. I jumped from there straight to the Olympics, which I think, in my view, is a great achievement.
Yes, that's an excellent achievement.
Yes.
That's an excellent achievement. And also, I recognize too that you got about 39 scholarships for university. So that must have been very difficult for you to decide which university to attend.
Absolutely. When I sat down and count the number of scholarship offers that I got, and I'm talking about George Mason, Clemson University, University of Texas, Arkansas, a lot of those Division I school, Division II school as well. It was very difficult. it was a type of stress. I ended up having a type of stress that I call the beneficial stress.
Yes.
Yes, it was a beneficial stress that I had when I was in junior college. My roommate, I told him several times that he should not answer the phone because it was just ringing, kept constantly ringing, and I wouldn't answer it, so he sometimes would answer. In order for me to study, I had was to go to the library because of the number of calls that was coming in. But again, it was a beneficial stress. It's a good position to be in.
Very good position to be in, actually.
Yes.
Okay, so what was the biggest moment for you in your sporting career?
I would say winning an Olympic medal. I think, I have several moments because there's a different feeling for each moment. When I came down for the trials in 1992, and I actually came third at the trials, that particular moment was bigger than even the way I was even perceived it to be, because it was a great achievement. It was everything that I was hoping for to be here at the Olympics. That in itself was big. But in 1996, when I won the medal, the overarching to that question would be winning the Olympic medal. I think it turned out to be, yes, I probably would say.
Yes, you won a bronze medal in the 4x4.
Yes, I won a bronze medal in the 4x4.
Yes, that was fantastic. And do you regret not winning an individual medal, in say the 400 meters?
No, I wouldn't say I regret. Yes, I wish I had won an individual medal. The fact is, since I was able to win the national championship trials at the 1993 trials in Jamaica, that in itself can somewhat kind of suffice for not winning a major individual medal.
And you have represented Jamaica very well. I recall you were the flag bearer at one occasion.
At the Pan American
Games. You carried the
Games,
flag,
yes,
right,
in
for your country. Yes, excellent. You have given much contribution to Jamaica. So at what point, though, in terms of you being an author, at what point did you decide that you wanted to be an author?
Well, I don't know if it was so much. I've always think about it a little bit, not much. I've had times when I thought about what it feels like or what it could feel like to be an author. I have my own story, and I figure that whenever time I tell people my story, we know that kids have very short attention span. And when I tell them my story, they want to hear more. And eventually I've had students who said, Mr. Blake, I think you should write a book. And then it clicks. Maybe I should put this into a book. But I have a friend who is an author and a motivational speaker, and he's a maybe 3 or 4 time Jamaican bobsledder, Devon Harris. And I remember giving him a call and said, I want to write a book, but I want to use a ghostwriter. And he said no. And he was very stern about it. He said, no, it is your story. No one knows your story better than you. You write it. Those were the words that he said. And I never forget it. I started writing. And that is
What's your first book? What's the name of your first book?
The name of my first book is An Olympian's Hidden Secrets.
An Olympian Hidden Secret. Mm-hmm. Okay. And is that available for sale now?
Yes, it is. It's on Amazon.
So we wish you all the best in terms of your career as an author. But also what we want to zero in on today as well is your view in terms of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. How has the pandemic impact the sporting arena? How has it impact the athletes globally?
I think it affects the athletes globally because they're not able to, it kind of put a damper on the Olympic Games. So they're not able to train well to represent their country. And also financially, it affects them financially. There are many athletes who track and field is the breadwinner of some of their families. It is what they use to sustain themselves, and they're not able to fulfill their contract. As a result, you have some athletes who had dreams and goals like I had. What happened is that they're now seen themselves pushing against the coronavirus to see whether or not they are going to be able to fulfill their dreams, their aspiration, their kids, especially in other Caribbean countries that would like to garner a scholarship to come to the United States to go to school. And those things are affected. There are a lot of athletes, I believe it also affects them mentally. They're not able to provide, some of the athletes have their own families and they're not able to provide for them, pay their bills and all that. So
what advice would you give them at this point? You're now retired from the sport. So what advice would you give to athletes who have not been able to perform because of the pandemic?
Well, it's important that
to compete.
Right. It's always important for athletes to have a backup plan, and especially for those athletes who are on scholarship or who are studying abroad and competing at the same time. They want to make sure that they stay focused on their academics. They want to make sure that they stay focused on their academics and choose career paths that will be considered one of those majors that they can always find a job, they can always get a job in those areas, as opposed to just thinking about track and field. And I think that is where a lot of athletes go wrong, because they set their heart and mind and soul on track and field. But what happened after track, if track doesn't work out, you want to make sure that you have something that you can fall back on. And
I think too that it's not just to have a job, because they can also be creators of jobs.
Absolutely. They can be mentors. They can be motivational speakers. They can talk about their own experiences, because, your experience is your experience. You can talk about your experience. And for me, especially, what I have learned, again, going back into the school system, is when I tell the kids my story. And I have several different stories, many stories. I can use my stories and I can shape my stories into it could be a particular thing that is happening, whether a student is given trouble, whether a student is becoming lazy and don't want to work. I can use my story, my track and field experience as to why they need to do X, Y, and Z, because I did it in so-and-so form and I was able to achieve so-and-so. If you do it, if you're committed, if you work hard, if you stay focused, those buzzwords are important for kids.
What I'm looking at as well in listening to you just now, I'm thinking about kids wanting to give up, especially in dealing with failures and setbacks. What is your experience in terms of failure and setbacks? How did you deal with failure as an athlete?
When it comes to setback, I look at it as a challenge. And I think the way I was brought up, the circumstances that I have been through, the challenges, I think that kind of prepare me. In other words, we would say that it gives me a strong backbone, because some of the things that I have seen where athletes or maybe students see as challenge and hard and all that type of thing, we laugh. We probably was something that we would laugh at, because it's nothing. It's not really a challenge for us, because we have been through worse than that. And so my encouragement to them would be, challenge is what bring out the fabric and fiber in an athlete or a student. The challenge is what you need to really see your true potential for success.
Okay, so you are involved in charitable activities. Can you tell us what's the name of that organization and what's the genesis of it?
Well, it all started when my daughter decided that after graduating from college, she's going to do a backpack tour. She wanted to go and tour Asia, and she was looking about 6 weeks or so. But obviously, mom wasn't going to allow that to just happen by itself. It wasn't going to just happen by herself. So she decided that she's going to go with her. While they were on the trip, they have seen and experienced so much trauma within that trip that they decided that they're going to cut their trip short. So they only spent 4 weeks, and they have traveled so many different countries. While they were away, I decided that, I needed to do something for my primary school. And I wanted to know what is it that I could do for the school. So I called the principal at the school, Morningside Primary School. I called her and asked her if there's one thing I could do for the school or do, what is it that she would want me to do? And she said, Dennis, it would be good if you could do a summer camp here, because the kids here don't have anything to do in the summer and they always walk about and get themselves into trouble. So I decided that I am going to ask my wife when she gets back, and if she is with it, then I know God is speaking. And so when she came back, I asked her, and she was with it. And so we ended up doing the camp. And the camp was really it was a one-time thing that we were doing. We weren't planning on having it as an organization. It was just a one-time thing. And we ended up formulating an organization because it was so successful that we have an organization called MTSP. So it's Mentoring Through Sports Professionals, MTSP Camp. And the website is mtspcamp.com. Mentoring Through Sports Professionals. We have traveled.
Yes, and that reminds me, you also have embarked on a new initiative, a new career path. Can you share with us about that?
Yes, I realized that one thing that I have realized over the years of working in the school system is I have seen so many kids in classes have a question that they want to ask, but they're afraid to ask the question. And so because they feel like they might be looked at as not bright, dunce, they look at that they might be stereotyped, so they don't really ask the question. I formulate smart work learning where we use students, intelligent students, to tutor other kids because they are now able to ask the questions that they want to ask, and they're able to stay longer on the question until they get it right, as opposed to in a classroom, a teacher teaches and a student maybe leave the classroom and don't get the proper learning. And so that is how that's how I created Smart Work Learning. It's a tutoring session for.
Okay. So we wish you all the best in that endeavor, because that sounds like a novel idea, because students can be reluctant to share in a class,
Absolutely.
and in terms of actually saying to a teacher that I don't understand, etc. And so that idea of students teaching students is really a novel one. And we wish you all the best with that. So what's next for Dennis Blake?
Well, I believe that athletes on a whole are underutilized. So I want to help. I have so much talent, so much experience, so much knowledge, and I felt like my expertise is not being utilized the way I want to utilize it. So I want to help developing countries with my gifts and my talents. There are many Olympian athletes out there who feel the same way like I do. We are not able to share and impart on others the way that we can. So we are underutilized.
Why is that? Why is that a challenge?
I think because there's in developing countries like the United States, you have an array of coaches, you have so many ways of becoming a coach and get certified and stuff like that. And even though some of them don't have the experience and the knowledge and the know-how like you who have been in it, it's not as rewarding as if you were in a developing country where they're hungry for success, where they can use it as a stepping stone to get out of poverty, to help themselves, to help their families. And I believe that it will be more, respected and seen as a benefit to a lot of those athletes or even individuals.
So basically you're saying in the developed countries, the opportunities are not there for that, or it is needed in the developed countries in terms of athletes who are no longer, retired athletes. You're saying that the opportunities for them to become coaches, etc., it would be more important and more relevant for the athletes who are in Jamaica or in third world countries versus being in the developed countries. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, when you look at, let's use United States for an example, is that you have so many athletes here, and not just United States athletes who are former Olympians. It'll be more received and you'll feel more accomplished and fulfilled. You'll feel like you are more making a greater contribution if you should move into less fortunate countries or developing countries. And I think it boils down to what the individual really wants. For me, what gives me joy is when I see that I am able to help one athlete move from this stage to the next stage and then go on to do something great. So I think that type of mindset for me would be more appreciated in developing countries who might not have a program, who are maybe struggling to even impart on their athletes some of the knowledge that we have that we are not using.
And so what are some of the countries you're looking at that you'd want to help?
Well, I've been to Liberia, I've been to Ghana, and I've been to South Africa. And there are some other countries that we're researching right now, Gambia.
So you have been to several countries and you're also looking at the Caribbean as well, not just Jamaica.
Well, right, not just Jamaica, because I don't think Jamaica, to be honest with you, I don't think Jamaica show the value past Olympian athletes that they should have. There are many athletes here in the States that I know for a fact who are so bitter, and they're bitter because of their experience, their past experience that they have had, and they just don't want to hear anything about track. They don't want to hear anything about the J-Trays. They don't want to hear anything about Jamaica track and field and all that type of thing. So why is that so? Maybe, again, it's their experience. Everybody have their own experience, and so they take a different path. I think the association need to do more to really involve former Olympians who have, even to just come back and talk to the high school kids. I think that is a viable program that they should have, where former Olympian athletes can come back into the schools, especially in those troubled areas, and speak to kids, but they never do stuff like that.
Well, I'm hoping from this podcast that someone in authority will hear what you have to say and will act on what you have shared with us today.
Yeah.
And in terms of the global arena, in terms of sports, what are your thoughts in terms of the athletes that are on the scene now? But what are your views in terms of where you want to see athletics globally?
Well, I actually have an issue. I have an issue where I think what the final result is going to be, but they're now trying to use transgender athletes to compete with girls, and they're having a big issue here in the States, because you could get up one day, you could be born as a boy and get up one day and feel like you want to be a girl, or you could born as a girl and get up one day and feel like you want to be a boy. And they are now fighting for what is happening here is that you have a guy running with a girl and beating the girl, and the girl is upset because every time she goes on the track, she can't win a race because this boy is much stronger, much faster, and it becomes a big problem. And I think it's going all the way up in the courts and all that type of thing. So I don't know how that is going to work out, because when you look at even the 800 meter runner from South Africa, Matola, I think her name is, and she has been having issues because of her testosterone levels, thinking it's too high, and that she should not be competing with the other girls and all that type of thing. She have been to court. So it's where track and field is heading. I am so happy that I'm not competing anymore, because I know it would have been a big issue to have that type of experience.
Wow. Wow. And I'm sure there are many who share that experience. Before we close off on this episode, I'd want to ask you though, name at least two persons or three persons who have influenced your sporting career.
Funny enough, they're females. One of them is Merlin Atty. I remember as a little boy watching television, which I didn't have. I have to watch my neighbor's television. And I listened it on the radio, and I used to hear her running and all that. And that was kind of motivating and encouraging to want to run on the global stage. Grace Jackson is also one person who I've admired over the years, and because of her wit and how she conducts herself. I consider her as a very strong Black woman who have a no-nonsense attitude. Those two persons I would actually say they are my biggest influence as a child growing up.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. And finally, I want to ask you, at this point, I know that you are working on another book. Do you want to share that with us? and how soon that book will be out. And also we want to know from you, your own children, if you want to see them in the sporting arena. I know you're out of it and you don't want to be in it, but would you want to see, an offspring of yours entering athletics?
Yes, absolutely. In terms of my kid, I have a son that does track, and he won. He's the first athlete to ever won the long jump and high jump in Division I track and field in the NCAA. So there's a spin-off already. In terms of the book, the next book I'm working on, haven't decided what the title is going to be yet. It could be The Will to Win. That one is going to take some time. That one is something that I'm working on. It's going to take some time because I need to come back to Jamaica and I need to spend some time where I was born and raised, because I need to look at the environment. I need to look at my surroundings. I need to get my childhood feeling back in order to be able to write from certain age in the book. And also I need to do an intense research on abuse in Jamaica among females. So that's what that book is about. It's about an individual who aspired to become an Olympic medalist. And while he was on his journey, he was faced with these challenges. He has 4 deaths in his family. The first one was his brother that died. Then his grandmother passed away, and they were all back to back, and then another brother and then another sister. And how do you stay focused on wanting to achieve an Olympic medal when you just have death after death after death after death? So it takes something beyond me to be able to stay focused on my one dream, which was to win an Olympic medal.
Okay, so that's a true story.
It is
based on a true story, and that sounds like it's your story.
Well, it could be.
Okay, so that's a fitting way to end this segment. And we want to thank you, Dennis Blake. And we're looking forward to hear a lot more from you. We're looking out for your new book. And we're thankful that you have a book out that we can actually go and get purchased at this point. Thank you for being our guest on Living Above Self.
Thank you for having me.